When you want to thread your machine, take your spool of thread and you're going to stick it on your spool pin. You want to examine your spool of thread to make sure that it isn't damaged. If it is damaged and only one side is damaged, have the damaged side facing up. If both sides are damaged, look for a different spool of thread. If you have no other spool of thread, then you got to sew really slow so the thread doesn't get caught and potentially snap your needle. So try not to use damaged spools of thread. So take your spool of thread, stick it on your spool pin. Then you're going to bring it across and hook it under this hook. Once it gets under the hook, you're going to drag it across this gap. Just drag it across, down the right side of this bar. You're going to go under and back up the other side. Now right here, we need to get it inside of the take-up lever. To do that, we need to follow the directions of this little arrow on top. The directions say to go from right to the back to the left. Now to do that, we have to make sure the take-up lever is in the right position. Right now it's too low. I couldn't make it work even if I really wanted to. So I need to make the take-up lever move up higher. So I'm going to turn the handle so the needle moves, because this will as well. So I'm going to turn it until this gets as high as it can go. I'm going to hang on to my thread, start on the right side, go all the way to the back, just like the picture, come forward, and if you did it correctly, it should be inside of the eye of the take-up lever. Okay, the rest of it's pretty simple. I'm going to turn this. You're going to just pull it straight down. This little bar right here is going to help us out, just to tuck the thread out of the way. You go from right to left and just tucks it behind it. The last part is just to stick it through the eye of the needle. So that's the very last thing to do. It's pretty simple. The hardest part is if your thread tip is fuzzy and the eye of the needle is usually really, really small. So that's another challenging factor. So normally, if you are a beginning sewer, I recommend that you have the machine off to avoid any potential accidents. If you cannot see very well, or if you've had more experience, then you could turn on the machine so you can see the eye of the needle better. But if you're a beginner sewer, I would not recommend it. I would recommend having the machine off just in case. When you're ready to thread it, it helps if you don't grab your thread super far away from the tip. That's just going to be kind of floppy and flimsy and not work very well. It helps if you grab it to where the tip of the thread is no more than about 3/8 of an inch from your fingers. Then you're going to poke it from front to back. You don't want to go from the back and go forward because that's going to potentially wrap string around your needle and it could snap it. And you're just going to go from front to back. Once you get it through, your other hand can kind of pinch it and pull it through. On some machines, there is a feature where they have a self-threader. This machine right now does have a self-threading feature where you can use it and work it out, but my needle is too big, so it actually won't work on this machine. So if you have a machine where the self-threader works, great, it saves you some time. But with how my machine is with this needle, it actually won't work, even though I have the feature on the machine. So that's how you thread the top part of the machine. You're almost ready to sew. We got to get the bottom part ready to go because you have to have 2 threads to sew in the sewing machine. You want to make sure you have a tail that's between 3 and 5 or 6 inches long. If it's too short, when you start sewing, it's actually going to suck the thread up and it will unthread it from your needle, which is really frustrating. So always leave what we call a tail between 3 and 6 inches from your threaded needle.